So today I had a nice opportunity to read something from this exceptional book referred to as Hey God, Wake the Fuck Up. And it was talking about basically, I think it's section two, where it talks about reconciling duality with liberty and versatility. So if you get your copy of the book, you'll be able to read that. I'm going to put out an audiobook at some point, but let me know if you think that would be fun. I think it'd be really nice to do that. I was working on it, and then I just stopped because I had other pressing issues. So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to really try to project here because often when I listen to this back, it's just like, oh, I can't hear myself, and it's not really there. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about humanity, unconscious, uncivilized, and subhuman. It's not humanity, it's people of Earth, Earth people. And this entire thing, some of the things I want to make sure I make clear every single time that I put out a live that eventually becomes a full-length video later on, is that this organization, the Apex Human Movement, the Apex Human Awakening Movement, the uh, Coherent Church of Comprehensive Christianity, or the C4 Collective, we do not claim to have a transcendent truth. We do not claim to have a fundamental truth. We just present some ideas, and it is your job to use your innate discernment and intuitive instinct, knowing whatever, to decide and discriminate on whether or not it's useful for you. We do not make claims to truth because we know that truth is contextual and therefore is irrelevant outside of context. And so that's the first thing that the C4 collective or church posits. The second thing, well, the first thing is civilization comes from coherent satisfaction. That's the primary method, the primary mode of what we're doing here. Coherent satisfaction creates civilization. That is the motto, that is the prayer. We don't believe in prayer, but that's the whole purpose of this Christian church is civilization. And so this talk, and you'll hear me say this a billion trillion times, but each time it's going to have more nuance. There are three main encapsulations that we want to present to you. Present to you. You can chew on this. You can deny it. You can embrace it. You can say, "Oh, it makes sense." You say it's complete malarkey. And so these are the three things that we posit. We posit that humanity, the people of Earth, are not civilized yet anymore. Then we posit that the people of Earth are not human, and that's a pretty big stretch. And we have lots of reasons for saying that. Again, truth within context. Truth does not exist. It's not, it does, there's no such thing as truth. It just doesn't exist, guys. I'm sorry. I hate to be an adult about this. Truth does not exist. Now, relativism is psychosis. There's no such, relativism is just mental laziness. It's like saying, well, if nothing is absolutely objectively grounded in reality, then everything goes. No, that's not how it operates. There are structures within reality that help determine how reality operates. And if you align with those structures as a conscious being, if you can attain consciousness, then you will find much more success in your path. And so the three things that we make very clear is that the people of Earth are not civilized, the people of Earth are not human. And the purpose of this organization, this collective, is the restoration of civilization. And we do that through coherent satisfaction. So that's the purpose of the Bible. That's the purpose of the Jesus allegory. That's the purpose of prayer when you actually use it as an intelligent, conscious being. Again, I'm going to say this will be the last time I say this. We are not claiming that we have truth because we don't care about truth. Truth is irrelevant outside of context. And so, with that said, we read the Bible the way the ancient pagans did when they compiled it. The Christian Bible, which was appropriated by Rome, was actually compiled by pagans and then reinterpreted by Jews and Hebrews and then reinterpreted by Roman savages and brutes, and then turned it to Christianity, 1800, 1600 years ago, depending on how you want to read it. And so we understand that, and we bring Christianity back to its pagan roots, and we understand the symbols, the allegories, the structures as they were meant to be understood, as symbols, as allegories, as ways to awaken something within that gives us the ability to create civilization. Humans have not been civilized for somewhere between 6 and 12,000 years, something like that. Everything that we have been taught is civilization is not civilization. It's just stratified, structural human collectives. Okay, and so that's where we land with this. That's why we are the coherent, comprehensive form of Christianity as opposed to the mainstream version of Christianity. So I think that's kind of where we want to just want to throw that out there. We posit first, civilization comes from coherent satisfaction. Second, um, the people of this world are not civilized, and then the people of this world are not fully human. And so, why would we say the people of this earth are not civilized? Well, just look at any society outside of the Nordic nations, Japan and Singapore, and you'll see what I'm saying. If you don't see that, this is not for you. Um, and then another thing to consider is not human. Well, humans were not born to be slaves. Humans are not instruments of labor. Humans are creative, co-creative, conscious, terraforming animals, more or less. And the human is operating in an incorrect way. It's like a tiger in a circus. Tigers were not designed by nature to operate in circuses. So it's like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example of why the people of Earth are not civilized. If you're familiar with the species or the genus Cetacea, okay, killer whales, dolphins, belugas, I think, are in that genus. Um, Whenever you find them in a place like SeaWorld or an animal park or a SeaWorld park or something like that, at some point they kill the trainers or there's some sort of horrendous thing that happens. Now, in the wild, orcas or killer whales don't touch humans. They're very gentle, they observe humans, and they keep it moving. Why is that? Now, killer whales or orcas are actually very civilized, very intelligent. They have different languages, different cultures. Their brains are more developed than people on land, and dolphins as well. Very intelligent, very civilized. They have their own societies. They have their own ways, their own cultures. And this is finally being understood by the monkey people that do science. And so when you put an orca into a tank and confine that orca and torment that orca and feed that orca the crumbs of dead fish and things like that, over time it causes something to happen in the brain of this brilliant conscious being that causes distortion that leads to mental illness, and the orca does what it's supposed to do. It eradicates the human that is the source of that torment. And so you look in the societies, the United States, Europe, all the sub-Saharan nations, Latin America, Australia, Oceania, wherever we go, and you see humans breaking mentally, committing homicide, engaging in abominable acts with other members of the society, doing harmful things to themselves, to others, engaging in self-abuse, taking drugs that destroy their minds and bodies. And then you say, oh, we have civilization. They live in a civilized civilization is messed up. No, no. A conscious human creature would say, this isn't civilization. This is mass psychosis. This is a stratified social setting, but it is not civilization. This is actually savagery. And so when you put a brilliant, beautiful, nature created creature that was designed by evolution into a situation where it is tormented for year after year after year after year, that brilliant, amazing, powerful computer in that cranial cavity is going to disintegrate, deteriorate, and then it is going to turn on whatever is causing its torment, as it should. And so you see humans, children, adults, etc., doing things that are aberrant, cruel, unhealthy, destructive. And what do people in society do? Pray to the sky phantom. Wait for the aliens to come save you. Pray to Jesus. Go eat vegan food, right? Or go eat all meat all the time. Mental illness is the basis of this social setting, of this structure. And this is not what civilization looks like. And so if you're hearing what I'm saying and saying, well, of course, duh, that's because you came here to resurrect civilization. You came here to restore civilization in your way. But you can't do it by going out there and helping these dumb monkeys, these monkey people on this planet. You do it by creating an exceptional life for yourself first, living from coherent satisfaction. And then from there, from your surplus, from your overflow, and from your power, being of service to the species that lives on this planet that thinks it's human. That's what we are here to do as apex humans, as geopolitical Christians, as C4 Christians, as collective whatever, Luciferians, whatever, Christo Luciferians, whatever you want to call us. That's what our job is. Okay? That is what the Christ was about. Christ was not a person. Christ is a process. Christ is a level of attainment. It's like being a doctor. A doctor is not a person. A doctor is a level of attainment academically or practically, professionally, depending on whether you're a PhD doctor or an MD doctor or some other doctor of education, doctor of theology. Okay? All right, let's get into the chat. There's a lot going on. Hello to everybody. Hello. Thank you for saying hi. Okay. All right. So, hello, Phoenix. Hey, I think, no, well, there's lots of Phoenixes on YouTube, as you can tell. 7,060. Thank you for joining us. Hello. All right. The goat. Hello, Thomas Tyson. Hello again. Hello, Sarah. And Kenny said hello. That's a cute way of saying Kenny. I like that. That's a really good way of saying. Okay. What's your take on the Christian Science? Okay. This is Friar Ed Dieu. Okay, I don't know if it's Friar because sometimes FR means Friar, but it was a Frediew. Okay, maybe it's a play on words. So this person says, "What is your take on the Christian Science and also higher dimensions being described in the form of heaven?" Thank you for that question. That was a very good question. We don't. Okay, first of all, it's empirically, and by the way, like I said, we do not claim to have truth, but we will say that what we present here is verifiable, testable, and evidence-based. Okay, for the most part. And I will speculate a lot, and I'll do my best to indicate when I'm speculating, because I do speculate, draw conclusions, extrapolate from what we know or what is in the mainstream understanding. So we'll answer. We'll just say Ed. Well, thank you for that. So the take on Christian Science and higher dimensions being described in the form of heaven. Heaven is a is made up. It does not exist. There's no such thing as heaven unless you're describing the sky. Now, in the Bible, the term heaven is the Greek word Uranus. And you think of the planet Uranus, there's a etymologic link between the planet Uranus and Uranus, the Greek word, which is the sky. And that's all it means. It just means the sky. And so for the last 2,500 years, the Western world has described heaven as the sky. And it's pleasant, it's nice, but we know there's nothing up there except for a bunch of empty space, some stars, of course, and then you go out far enough, you probably find billions of planets, galaxies, quasars, whatever. We don't have the technology, excuse me, Earth, Earth people don't have the technology to get there. I'm not going to include myself in that. You take enough of certain substances, you can go to the fucking Alpha Centauri. But the technology of the people on this earth, right, is not such that, at least not in the mainstream, is not such that they can go out there. So it's irrelevant. It's not nothing to talk about. It's not anything to talk about. So when we're talking about heaven, you have to go back to the original Christian understanding of heaven, the ancients, the pagans. Heaven is not in the sky. It is wherever that part of you that looks through your eyes into the mirror came from. That's what heaven is. And Jesus said the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. In Matthew 6:33, I believe it is, he said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. I believe that's Matthew 6:33. Notice the numerology, if that is the correct verse. The word he says, kingdom of heaven, um, there, when I did the research on that, I think the Greek word was Uranus, and it's speaking of the sky, the kingdom of the sky. Now, I think that's a misunderstanding. I think that is a mischaracterization. And this is where I'm going to speculate. I speculate that, and this is what the ancients seem to be very clear about, they were talking about a level of awareness that is inaccessible to the physical form. So these bodies are monkey bodies. They're too dense. They're dumb. They're beautiful, wonderful things if you train them right. Like you can train your body to do your will. Most people don't know how to do that, but you can learn how to do that, and it becomes your slave or your servant, and it'll do your will. But the thing that it's talking about is that part. Like I said, when you look into the mirror, you don't see you. You see the body that you're looking through. Okay, you're seeing a monkey suit or a person suit, a monkey person suit. And so when you look through those eyes, whatever is looking through your eyes, that is you. That is what you are. And so you are where heaven is. You are from heaven. This body is never going to go anywhere but back to worm food. It started as jizz and vaginal, whatever comes in the uterus, right? And then it came out of your mother's uterus as water and meat, and it's going to turn back into worm food. That's all that this body is. It's all it'll ever be. But there's a part of you, the spark. You could say the electrical spark, the electromagnetic field, the antenna. That is God. That is the consciousness, and that's what heaven is about. And if you can train your consciousness to be aware of that, you can actually go to heaven now. You can go to heaven every single time you go to sleep. Every time you close your eyes, you can go to heaven. There's some organizations or brotherhoods that I had been associated with that teach you how to do that. Now the masses, the public will never know that. It's just not something they need to know. They don't even know how to find their own anus with their hands tied behind their back. So, but if you feel human and not just one of these robot monkey people that walks around, no hate against them, it's just what they are, then you can open up that portal and go there. So Christian Science, I don't know too much about because I don't do that kind of stuff. I like them because they are a cult and, you know, they're controversial. But outside of that, I like that they are disliked and that they are condemned by society. I like that. And I think that Christian Science is perhaps more coherent than your typical evangelical who believes that Jesus Christ is Lord. Because the Christian Science, um, you know, there's like a bunch of science fiction books that they base their religious beliefs on. I'm down with that. At least they're honest about the fact that what they care about or what's important to them is fiction. Can mainstream Christians finally admit that? Can they finally say, I mean, their scholars will say it because their scholars have to say it. It's obvious that most of Jesus and the Bible is made up. It's not real. So at least they can say L. Ron Hubbard and his, collection of, he's the most prolific science fiction writer, I believe. Check that for me. But at least with L. Ron Hubbard, people can say, yeah, okay, that was all made up stuff. Can we please finally admit that about the Bible? The Bible's more effective. It's more better, but it's still made up. It's not real. And so, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chip. So let's see. Do you believe in the firmament? If not, what makes you believe otherwise? The firmament. Um, I don't know. I've never been up that high. I used to have lots of dreams about the firmament as a child, and I didn't even know what they were about. I didn't even know that the idea of the firmament. I had heard about it and read about it, and as a child, I always was keen to etymology. So when they say God made the heaven and earth and there was a firmament and he separated the waters above from the waters below, um, I always thought the word firm is in the word firmament. And if you have firm in firmament, that means the sky is solid. And I knew that as a kid. I didn't know why. And then we never were flat earthers or dome people or anything like that. We weren't into that. That was not our belief system. But I would have many dreams that felt more real than real life, where I would go up and hit something solid. I'd go to the top of a Mount Everest or someplace like that. I knew about Mount Everest when I was a little kid, and I would have dreams of going to the top of Mount Everest and getting to the top, and it just being solid, and just knowing that that's how it is. So I don't know. I like the idea of the firmament. I like the idea that we're in a dome and whatever. I like the idea. I like the idea. I can't prove it. I can't um, go one way or the other on it. And I actually think that it's nice for philosophical discussions and things like that. It's fun. I'm just nice. It's fun, but um, I'm more interested in creating coherent satisfaction for myself that is so abundant, so purposeful, so flourishing that it flows out into the lives of those around me. And perhaps one day we'll find out that this is all a simulation. We're in a giant human monkey zoo, you know. Um, I think that that might be true, but as it is right now, I'll do my part to make this simulation as pleasant as possible for myself and those who I care about. So, yeah. Hey, Letitia, or sorry, Latrice Hayward. Thank you for joining. So, yeah, but thank you for that. I think that's Fred. I'm just gonna say, uh, Fred, do you, Freddie, you, something like that. So, yeah. So to close out, humanity doesn't exist here. That is, so the C4 Church posits that humanity doesn't exist at this level. That the world in which we live is uncivilized, and that the way we create civilization is through coherent satisfaction. The Bible and Christianity, the purpose of those is to restore civilization, not to take us to heaven after we die, but to restore civilization and create a world that works. Not a better world, not a good world, but a world that works, so that humans can, the monkey people of Earth can actually experience what it's like to be human. Um, because I remember what it's like to be human, and I think all of us do if we give ourselves permission to just remember. So, with all that said, thank you guys for joining. Thanks for the questions. Make sure you get your copy of Hey God, Wake the Fuck Up. Gods of the Aquarian Age is en route. It's en route. I like to not talk about my projects before they see the light of day. But all right. Anyway, should I read something? I'm gonna read something from the book and then get out of here. Let's see. Oh, got to. Do you believe? Let's see. Another question. Do you believe in multiple dimensions? If so, do you also believe that Earth is actually a lower dimension, which could be considered hell, which could also be the main reason why Lucifer walks today? I like Lucifer. I don't have any problems with Lucifer. Lucifer and Christ to me are synonymous. Do I believe in multiple dimensions? The church does posit that dimensionality is something that is not well understood. It also is very clear that the human brain, the brain of the monkey people that make up Earth, is the brain of monkey people that live on this planet is incapable of seeing more than the limited dimensionality that they have access to. So think about the brains we've been given. It's not even our fault. Um, some of it is just people you know, are just conditioned, and people are conditioned. People are conditioned not to think for themselves, and they're conditioned not to see more than they can see. But if you go to indigenous cultures or groups that live outside of the mainstream society, globalized geopolitical societies, um, those people tend to see more. And so they're using more senses than um, the mainstream socialized human in like the United States or in London or something like that would use. So dimensions, yeah, but it's I try not to get into that because I don't think that even the so-called science of this society has any understanding of what that means, dimensions. I don't, and I don't want to try and speculate too far into that anymore. So, do I also believe that Earth is actually a lower dimension? I wouldn't say Earth is a lower dimension. I would just say that it's a denser plane of existence, and that I think could be teased apart from dimensions. It's just a denser plane of existence. Kind of like if you were to go to the bottom of the sea, right? The density of the water there is such that it can be 700 degrees. There are parts at the bottom of the ocean that are 700 degrees near the volcanic vents, but it's such dense salt water that it's still water, and there are creatures living in it. So water turns into steam at, I think it's like 100 and whatever, right? 120 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. But you go to the bottom of these, whatever it is, you go to the bottom of these vents, and water is still liquid, and but it's really dense. It's a lot of salt there. So I think that's how reality is. I think it's kind of like that. And creatures that are designed by nature to exist within those realms thrive. They're crabs and crustaceans and whatever that live at those vents, and they are fine. They eat and live, and they're not cooking. You can cook a crab here in water, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but down there it's 700 degrees, and going around eating whatever lives down there. So I think Earth is just like that. It's just we're just part of this is just a denser level of existence. So there's a guy by the name of Mead Lane, Meadelayne, and he was at the forefront of the UFO phenomenon. I think he was the most coherent UFO person, right? He's at the forefront of ufology, and you'll never hear about him because everyone wants you to think that UFOs are from some other planet or some stupid like that, which is really remedial. Because they want you to believe aliens are coming from out there to here to help you or to kill you, to eat you, or to tickle your butt, but that's stupid. It's so remedial. But anyway, Mead Lane said that there are other human civilizations that live concurrent with us. They're just on a different frequency band. So think about your radio. If you've used a radio, if you're old enough to know what a radio, like to how radios work, you have all these dials, right? You have 91.2 FM, right, or 89.3 FM, and those are different radio stations. All you got to do is turn the dial, and you pick up a different radio wave, and then you pick up that station. Well, he posited, well, from his experiences, that you can get into meditative states. You can take, he didn't say this, I'm going this way. You can take psychedelics, you can take mind altering substances, you can have a brain injury like Ellen G. White did, and you can tap into different radio stations of reality. We'll call it that. And so I think that's what dimensions about. I'm using the quote signs because dimension, what does that mean? But there are different radio stations of reality, and humans are at the people of this world are at the most rudimentary, savage, one of the most rudimentary and most savage radio stations. We'll call it that. And if you go up a bit, well, then it's like you have the rap station where it's like ooga booga, right? I love rap, whatever. I don't like rap that much. But I'm saying you have the ooga booga rap, right? Oh, I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna fuck your bitch and all that, right? And then you have the classical station. Those aren't the same radio stations. You got to go to a different frequency to pick up that, a different radio wave to get to that station. And so that's how I think it is. I think that Earth is the ooga booga, uncivilized, subhuman, crazy stuff. And then you have actual civilized, real human places, and that's just a different radio station. So think of reality like different radio stations. Earth, or this version of Earth, is the ooga booga station, and they think they're civilized, but they bash each other's head in, they assault each other and do things terrible to kids, and use medical systems to torture each other to death. That's Earth. But you can actually have dreams, you can have meditations, you can alter your mind, and you can go to places where you're like, oh, this is civilization. Oh wow. And they're real. Like they're not floating in the air like these psychotic ghosts. They're actually real. They have real lives. They go get food, they work jobs, they do all the stuff, but they're not suffering all the time like the people in this radio station reality. That's the best way to say it. Yeah. That last question was totally fine. Yeah, and we're totally pro Lucifer, by the way. This is a Christian church that's very pro Lucifer. Why? Because um, Lucifer was never considered a bad guy until it was later on. That's when Christianity became like a mass public slave religion. That's when Lucifer became a bad guy. But if you go back to the early Catholics and some of the early hymns, you read that Christ and Lucifer are synonymous. And there are multiple verses in the Bible where Christ and Lucifer are interchangeable if you read the Vulgate. That's one of the reasons that people are bothered by the Vulgate, the Latin text, because it shows you who Christ really is. Christ and Lucifer are synonymous. All right. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for those questions. Those are actually fun questions. I like answering those things. Hi. Okay, have you ever felt or dreamt in a different dimension? Catherine asked if I felt or dreamed in a different dimension. I believe that I have, because I've been in places, especially when I was a child. I had been in places where the so as a child, I went to places that were more real than here, and I knew those places were where I came from. I did not want to come back here. If there's ever been a suicidal child, maybe I was that. not not for real. What I mean is like I would have rather, if death was the way I could get back there, I would have been okay with it. So like when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I would have these dreams, recurring dreams of going to this place. It happened all the way up until my early, like I was about 11 or 12 years old, and then it stopped. It must have just been, if you know anything about brain chemistry and mature, brain development, when a child gets to a certain point, their brain stops producing a certain brainwave pattern. And that's often attributed to the maturing of the brain, the first maturing of the brain, around somewhere between age 6 and 8 years old. Mine last, I was still operating as a child with a young child's brain until like 11 or 12. And so I was in remedial classes and things like that. So something changed, and then I became like advanced and went to college early and all that stuff, whatever. So, but yeah, I had dreams where I went to places that were more real than this world and amazing beyond words, beyond words. The only time that I was able to recreate or re-understand that as an adult was when I was 33 years old and I had psychedelics for the first time. I do not condone the use of psychedelics. Honor and respect the laws of your country and jurisdiction. Okay, I just want to say that. But I had mind altering substances for the first time in my life when I was 33. And the moment I had that experience, I was like, oh, this is what my childhood dreams were, similar to this. All the different beings and all the different, sensations. So yeah, I believe that I have been to other dimensional levels of reality. I had a lot of ET experiences too. I think all of that is tied together. And I don't believe in ET. I don't believe in like aliens and stuff like that. I just think that, there's more to reality than we want to believe. So I reject the idea of aliens. It's just, I think it's silly, even though I've had over 100 experiences with them. Yeah. Oh, you've been to other dimensions. It was disturbing. What was disturbing about it, Catherine? And I know some, and there are, by the way, certain levels of reality that are profoundly disturbing. My sister reminded me, I used to tell her about these other places I would go, and the best way to describe them was hell. And it's scary and it's dark and blah, 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 whatever, you know. But yeah, I know that there are some levels that are more unpleasant, you know. It's like you go from the rap station of reality, because if we use the analogy of reality being radio stations, you can go from the rap station of reality over to the grunge growling rock station where they just go okay, and that's a little more chaotic than rap. Okay, at least in rap you can kind of understand what they're saying if you know all the slangs. But then this version of rock where it's just people just growling. You can't understand anything they're saying. Okay, so that's there are realities that are more unpleasant than this place. But I consider this collective world to be hell to some extent, and the reason I'm still here is because I'm convinced that it's my job to create as much heaven as I can before my time here is up. And so uh, I'm not here to make it for you guys. That's your job. But I'm here to make it for me. If I can beat this game, I can turn this place into heaven for myself and leave that example to others. And hopefully other people can do the same. Other people have done it. I learned from them. I'll do it. I'll teach it to other people or share it with other people. I don't want to teach anybody, but just share it with other people, and they'll take what's good and they'll throw away the rest that I give them and move forward. So that's the plan. And that's the purpose of this entire church, is to encourage people to find their own path to coherent satisfaction. Coherent satisfaction creates civilization. The apex human awakening is just about that. We don't create civilization by enslaving others, by torturing others, and more importantly, fuck everybody else. We don't create heaven. We don't create a better world. We don't create a world that works by torturing ourselves, by enslaving ourselves, to jobs, to relationships, to belief systems, to whatever. We create heaven by finding that inner spark and trusting it, listening to it, and moving forward. And look, I am self-convicted in the sense that there are times where I doubt that inner spark and I don't listen and I'm afraid to move over. I know I'm doing something like that right now. And I understand that my identity is the fulcrum. So if I'm afraid to move forward, that's because I'm being a phantom. I'm not being myself. But when I know what I need to do to move forward, and I consistently do that with enthusiasm, then the phantom goes away and all the resources I need to move forward are provided. So, yeah. And Catherine says, I have had experiences with post-apocalyptic world. Oh, you must be post-apocalyptic world. But it's so weird. All in dreams. And I do not do drugs. Yeah. Well, also, I want to make this clear that, and this is well known in literature, in research, and this is evidence based. So, what I'm going to share with you is evidence based. A lot of those dreams that you have about a post apocalyptic world, about hell, about all the darkness and stuff like that, is socially engineered. So, there is somebody or some group of people feeding your brain images, right? On commercials, TV, school, billboards, everywhere you turn on your phone, YouTube, everywhere. Your brain is taking in imagery. And if you're in a distressed state, if you're tired, if you're depressed, if you're doubtful, if you're angry, if you're anxious, you go to sleep and then your brain just regurgitates all that stuff. Post apocalyptic worlds, the demons, fire, hell, suffering, pain, torment. And so a lot of it is contrived. A lot of it is meaning somebody is creating a narrative and your brain is susceptible to that and it is regurgitating that. And so there's a lot of times like I don't watch movies anymore because I know it's programming and I don't want some stupid remedial ape programming this. That's my job. And so I will program this mass inside this cranial cavity the way I intend for it to be operating. And so I'm very sensitive to those sorts of deceptive patterns and I can see them very clearly. I was very, very fortunate I had a mother that was very clear on that too. I program my mind, and my brain the way I want it to operate. And so I would encourage you to do the same, not by cutting yourself off from things you enjoy. Like if you enjoy superhero movies and whatever, and it exposes you to that post-apocalyptic, uh, indoctrination, that's totally fine. Just know that that's what's happening. You're being indoctrinated with that. There are subhuman groups that have an agenda around that, and they're not as powerful as they want you to think. There are a lot of people that say, "Oh, Illuminati and monsters and people eating babies," and it's psychosis. Nobody's doing that stuff. There is an inferior force. It's superior to the populace. Now, it's superior to everybody on Earth, but it's inferior to those of us who wake up. And it keeps the slave monkey slaves which makes up most of humanity, 99.999% of people are monkey slaves, it keeps them in this loop of fear. Oh, oh, either Jesus is coming, I need to be a good boy or a good girl, or the aliens are going to come and blow up the planet, or climate change. It's a constant fear loop. And so the remedial apes are out there just running in fear all the time. They rush to work to pay the bills, rush to the school, pick up the kids, rush to this, do that. And they never take a moment to like stop and breathe and realize that life actually is beautiful. And actually life is something they have power over. Because if you realize that, well, then you would just tell those, you know, overlords of this hellscape to go fuck themselves. And then they would, because they don't have any power to deny you. And so um, that sort of indoctrination has gone on for since the Middle Ages. And so a lot of people can't escape it. But do you? Yeah. I'm a lot older than than you, I know. And this crap was weird. I do not watch movies that scare over 35 years, for this always has been a large part of all religions. Yeah, yeah. But we have to go back to the inception of Hollywood and understand who had their hands early on. And I'm not talking about Jewish people, so don't go there. But initially, Hollywood was run by like WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christians, and and it wasn't them that injected all this ideology into it. But if you go back to old Hollywood, 1930s, 40s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 50s was like the golden age of Hollywood. But you go back to that time period, and you start to see that it was a media machine, and they were learning from the Nazis, who understood how to use propaganda, and the Soviets. And so as a matter of how do we control the populace and ensure that the populace uh, aligns with the objectives that we have for society. And then it was just bait and switch, bait and switch, bait and switch, cloud of mirrors, you know mirrors and clouds and mirrors, smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors. And so people behind the scenes know what's happening, right? If you work in the media industry or things like that, you know what's happening, because it's not a big, you get it. And it's not necessarily nefarious, but just how it works. Like, obviously, this is not like hocus pocus. It's not conspiracy. The CIA has a significant influence on media outlets. It has lots of operatives within media stations. Uh, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, all that, Fox. CIA has a lot of operatives there, and even on things that you think are free from their influence, there's a lot of influence. And so it's nothing to be afraid of, but just be aware of it if you care. If you don't care, forget about what I'm saying. Just ignore it and go on and enjoy your life. But it's something to be aware of. And then to ask yourself, what am I being encouraged to believe, expect, and think about life? And is that serving my coherent satisfaction? If it does not serve your coherent satisfaction, you might want to consider discarding it. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying you might want to consider that. So, yeah. The Academy Awards were invented by the three studios, and they agreed to swap the Oscar winners. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, a lot of everything, like, so everything. Yeah, there's a guy that does a decent job of, I don't know his name, but he does a decent job of talking about psyops, or psychological operations, that are done by three-letter organizations: FBI, CIA, DOD, whatever. And he does a decent job. I've noticed some cracks in some of the things he says, which indicates that he's also part of the process, but I won't name him. Um, anyway, you can look up stuff on your own, and I'm not gonna just, yeah. So you can look up stuff on your own, but everything is contrived. You just, at the end of the day, have to think about, how is this impacting my sense of satisfaction? And so This has gone on long enough. This has been a good discussion. Like I said, to close it out and round it out, there are certain premises that our church focuses on. The first one is coherent satisfaction creates civilization. The whole purpose of the Bible and Christianity is to restore civilization in the earth person's experience and resurrect humanity or apex humanity in this world. The way that we get there is through coherent satisfaction. Humanity or the people of this world are not civilized yet anymore. And that's an intentional seeming oxymoron. What else do we do not have truth. We do not profess to have the truth. We just do not care about the truth because truth is contextual. So within a context, truth can exist, but outside of that, it does not exist. The Bible is allegorical. It is a pagan compilation, and Jesus Christ was never a man. It is merely an allegorical personification of the power that exists in you. So thank you guys for being here. Stay Apex, and make sure you get your copy of Hey God, Wake the Fuck Up. It should be a link in the description below. There's also like a thing about AI. You can get a free book that I wrote on AI. And yeah, it's cool. Cool. So I think that's all I want to say. I don't even think I have to read. What am I gonna read? I should probably read a segment of my book in every one. Like every at the end of every live, read like a section. I'll do it. I'll read something. Yeah, there was this one section that I saw that was pretty damn good. So, okay, I will say this and maybe just read a simple thing from the beginning. So, God is not complex. God is not necessarily all powerful. God is like electricity. It's just something that humanity will one day, or the people of this world will one day understand, utilize, manipulate, and then rebuild. So, God is like fire. In the ancient times when people had fallen from a civilized state into savagery, they didn't know what electricity and fire was because they had forgotten. They were in a savage state. And so humans today don't know what God is because they're in a savage state. They fight over whether God exists or not. And that's a cyclical, stupid argument. Um, the more intelligent thing to do is to find out what God actually is and find out how to utilize it to make your life work. So God is not worshiped, but developed. Live with this understanding, and the sky is no longer your limit, but your launch pad. Make sure you get your copy of Hey God, Wake the Fuck Up. It will change your life. It certainly did mine. I did some things after writing this book and through the process of evolution, because this came out of getting, my doctorate and doing doctoral research on the Christian experience and on biblical literature. And I learned some things about the Bible that made it very clear to me that it's not real. It's not. It's not historical. It's all made up, and it's actually designed to restore civilization. So, all right. Thank you